Okay, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, and we're going to get started here with our pre-market analysis for the S&P 500 futures. We're going to go to our high time frames again, and these are what I call my ultra high time frames. We're looking at a quarterly chart here, and everything basically since the last month or two has looked the same. Very, very strong. No signs of exhaustion in this push up, at least for right now. We do have another 12 days before this candle officially closes, but currently there are no indications of exhaustion in this move. So looking really, really strong. On the monthly, pretty much the same deal, although again, this candle will close in 12 days in conjunction with the quarterly candle here. And so this still has time to develop. And currently you can see we have pushed to a new high compared to the previous bar, and we have pushed to a new high in RVI, at least for now. Remember that this does have 12 more days to develop, so we could potentially close and this RVI actually closes down over here. If that happens, then our monthly chart is going to have an indication of some exhaustion in this push up. But currently, we do not see that. So looking very strong on the ultra high time frames. And then the weekly, we've been talking about this for a few days if you watch the pre-market every morning. When we closed on May 7th and came into the market on May 10th, we said we had a very clear bearish indication on our weekly chart. And then sure enough, that week, we had the big 250 point sell-off or something like that. And so you can see that on this bar. And then, of course, the bulls jumped right back in, brought us all the way back up, and we have this really big wick to the downside, which is somewhat of a bullish indication, but we have not carried through to come up and break and make a new all-time high here. So we'll have to watch as this weekly bar continues to develop. Right now, all we can say is that last week we got a bearish indication, and the week before we got a bearish indication, and from that point we did get the big 250 point sell-off. We can't say too much about the current candle because we have to give this time to develop. So super high time frames or ultra high time frames all look extremely bullish. And the weekly is the only one showing a little bit of bearishness, and we already got a significant pullback, so that could be all that we get right now. When we jump to the daily, what I am noticing is when we closed yesterday, we basically had a double top here. So the high was 78.25 there, the high here was 78.75. You can make the argument that yes, this bar did push up just a few ticks higher, but if you look at RVI, it's a pretty pronounced push up. So I would say that there was a little bit of an indication here of some bearishness off the previous daily bar. So there is the potential here that we could get somewhat of a pullback because the daily and our weekly have those bearish indications again. So we did bounce, and remember last week we said we had a bullish indication off this low. This is what gave us, in conjunction with some of the other time frames, our bullish bias going into the morning of, I believe it was the 13th, before this actually officially closed. We said we had the potential here of a bullish indication, and sure enough, it did hold and push to come up almost to test the all-time high. Now we're having a little bit of trouble in the move right now, and this is where we got a little bit of a bearish indication on this daily chart right now. So the current candle, you can't really say much about. We did push to make a slightly higher high again, so it's slightly higher, and then RVI at the moment is a little bit higher. But remember, this is going to close at the end of today, and this bar and this RVI line could shift. So currently inched up a few ticks, then we inched up a few more ticks. So, maybe you could make the argument there really is no divergence because we do have higher high, and the RVI is higher high. Although I would argue that yesterday's candle compared to the candle from Friday, you basically have a double top here and a much more pronounced push up. So you have kind of an exotic bearish divergence there. So again, we'll have to watch today if we can push back up and at least get up to 79.50 and maybe break up a little bit further, and our RVI stays up here, then we could kind of basically ignore that bearish indication that we saw from yesterday's candle. So it's a little bit funky here with the daily. I would say that overall there are some slight bearish indications, with the weekly giving a pretty clear bearish indication. But we'll see how far we get here. We do have our the other high time frames to look at and our short time frames to see if we're getting a bearish indication off these highs, to see if we potentially could have a pullback this morning. So on the 4 hour here, remember yesterday we said we had this bearish indication off the high, and sure enough, we pushed down to pull back just about, it's almost a 38% retracement of this push up from the week midway through last week. Now currently we did push up here on the 4 hour to make that slightly higher high, just like we saw on the daily. We were at 78.75, which was yesterday's high, and we pushed in the overnight to 79.50. So we did push higher, but the 4 hour RVI pushed lower. So we have another bearish indication here on the push up. So now we have kind of our daily and our 4 hour giving us a little bit of a bearish indication off of the overnight high. Other than that, right now, I don't see anything too clear. Now we need to keep in mind that we have this new leg here that we're going to want to watch, and it ends up lining up with a lot of interesting levels. So we'll get into that on our intermediate time frame here. But so far, ultra high time frames look no indications of bearishness until we get to the weekly, and then our daily and our 4 hour do have some bearish indications currently off of the overnight high. When we jump to our 60-minute or our 1 hour, you can also see the same indication off of that 79.50 high that we made in the overnight session. And so this pullback right now does make a lot of sense, because now we have pretty much a lot of our high time frames giving us that bearish indication. And the 60-minute is pretty much the lower end of my high time frame, what I consider my high time frames. So the high time frames are all kind of agreeing here that we have some bearishness in this push. Now we do need to keep in context here that we are pushing in a pretty strong bull push here, so we will get bearish indications off the highs. But for me, seeing the high time frames all agreeing is giving me a little bit of an alarm here that this could be a little bit more of a protracted sell-off. But again, being in a bull push, we have to be cognizant of what's below us. We could very well see a bounce and then get a counter indication on these time frames for a larger push up. Now, something to point out very quickly, or actually we might as well just jump down to our intermediate time frames. We are bouncing directly off, and you can see it right here on my super short time frames. We just bounced directly off 50% of the previous day. So there's a reason I use this level, and it's because I see it react off the level time and time again. Sometimes for really big moves, sometimes it's just a 1 or 2 point bounce, but nonetheless, this level is very, very important. So let's go to our intermediate time frames and see what they're saying, at least from that overnight high, because I'm kind of interested to see if we do get some agreement here. Now, when we jump to that overnight high, we actually do not have any clear indication on our 30-minute that there was a bearish signal. Now, we can look all the way back to the previous daily high at 78.75 and make an argument here that we pushed up just a few ticks, but from an RVI perspective from back here, at least from that major peak we have here, we did push down. So we kind of see similar to what we see on the hourly, although what I personally would like to see when we start getting to this local area is an actual divergence right here. So I really would have liked to have seen maybe a push from here up to here in price, but then the RVI actually pushed to make a lower high. Instead, we don't have any divergence in the local area. We just have it off of that last major swing high. So there's still an argument to be made. So we can say that our 30-minute, our 60-minute, our 4-hour, and even our daily do have a little bit of an indication of some bearishness off the overnight high. Although now we are down just about 20 points. So that could be all we get due to the fact that we are in somewhat of a bullish market now. And so we'll see here. What I am noticing is that from the lows we made here, pretty much from our overnight lows, which we had right around 41.56 here, we do have a pretty clear divergence. And maybe what I should do just to clear up the chart is erase all the lines so we don't have so many lines on the chart. So give me one moment. And that way we can see everything a little bit clearer. So from the overnight low, we did push up, and again, we're bouncing right off of 50% of the previous day right now, which was 41.5750. But we made a lower low on the RVI. So we do have a slight bull indication here on our 30-minute chart. So give me one moment to label this. We do want to keep that in mind. Now, if we break 41.60, which basically is, let me see here, or sorry, 41.56. I don't know where 60 came from. 41.56. If we break that, we'll no longer see that indication on the 30-minute. So we want to keep that in mind. And I'm also noticing, and let's jump right to the higher time, the next level up, the 60-minute. If you do look and you zoom in here, that 41.56 level on the 60-minute, we do have, again, the push up just by a point or whatever. And we also do have that push down on the 60-minute, right? So we have a lot of bearish indications off the overnight high, and we've got this 20 point pullback. But now we're starting to get somewhat of a bullish indication on the 60-minute and the 30-minute. So we need to see if this 41.56 will hold, because that will hold the 60-minute and the 30-minute indication that we see right now. On top of that, what I do want to point out here is that we do have this leg, right? And what I really like about it is that the retracement levels line up very clearly with some other important levels in the market. So 38% retracement of the push up all the way to 79.50 lines up pretty much with the resistance we had in the market here back on May 13th. So we came right up to 22, pulled back, right back up to 22 again, maybe pushed just a little bit past it and pulled back. And then you can see support-wise, once we broke through, we bounced almost to the tick here in the middle of the night on the 14th. And then just around the open on the 14th, we pretty much bounced off that level again. So the 38 retracement, not only does it line up with the support and resistance, we also have a prediction point right there. So that solid blue line is lining up pretty nicely with a 38 retracement. The 61 also lines up with some decent resistance and support in the market. You can see here, and if you look back in time, you'll see a lot of reaction in the general area there. So right now, I do like the fact that these two are lining up, and then even the 50% retracement, if you look here, we broke through, pulled back, and bounced just a point or two below that 50% level and pushed and have not been back. So we've got some decent retracement levels below us that we're going to want to watch. And if our bullish case is going to hold this morning, we're going to hold above that 41.56. Let's see what the 10-minute is telling us in that general area and off the overnight high. So again, let me just quickly clear actually, I think we can zoom in. It won't be as cluttered. So from our 10-minute perspective, we also did not have a bearish indication off the overnight high. So what is this telling us here? Some of you are probably confused because, all right, every time frame on the higher levels is giving us bearishness, but now our 30-minute is not quite as clear, and the 10-minute definitely has no bearish indication. So what that's telling me is we don't have a complete agreement on that bearish signal, and we might not get as big of a follow through as we might expect. So this 20 points very well could be it. We did come down and test the 50% of the previous day here to the tick, and we've bounced a little bit so far. And we do have that 56 level that we're gonna, or sorry, 5650 level that we're gonna want to watch here to hold in order for the other time frames to hold that bullish indication. So not only did we have the bullish indication on the 1 hour and the 30-minute, we also have it here on the 10-minute, again extrapolating all the way back to that same low that we used for the other time frames. You can see this push up in price just by a point or two, and then you can see from the RVI this very clear push down. Now look, you can make the argument on a number of other levels here that we do have bullishness, right? So we could have drawn it from a lot of these lows and gotten the same indication. They did get some bounces for about 3, 4, 5 points, but because we're finally now getting agreement on multiple time frames from this level, this could be the final kind of area where we do get a larger reaction. So coming into the open, looking at our high time frames and our intermediate time frames, we kind of have some conditions to pay attention to. If we can hold above 5650, and let me just go ahead and just make that 5650 here. If we can hold above that level, then we could potentially carry through for a push up here. If we can't hold above that 5650 level, we could potentially be looking for some shorts, but remember, we're looking for shorts into some of these really key areas. So we have the retracements at, we have the retracements here pretty much right, hold on a second, let me pull up the other time frame. We have these retracement levels to watch if we end up breaking 5650. So if we break 5650, we could potentially have some support here around 3650, which was the previous daily low. Again, this 38 retracement area right where the CP is makes a lot of sense, and the 61.8 area also does make a lot of sense. Now, if we continue down lower than that, we do have other levels to pay attention to, including this 4077. So for those of you who were here last week, you remember that 4077 was a really important level. In fact, if we go to the short time frames, 4077 is already marked down here. You see that 77 quarter in red? That's red only because I think we marked it that morning as a bearish level. So if we could stay below 77 quarter, this was last week, then we were going to have a bearish morning. We actually broke right above it after the open, and that gave us the confirmation for our bullish morning. So we're going to want to watch that 77 as well. So hopefully that gives us a clear picture as to what's going on here. We ideally would hold 57 here and continue pushing, but if we do pull back, we're going to want to watch 5650. If that can't hold, we're probably going to want to look for shorts down into some of the important levels below us. So we have about 2 minutes here until the open, and I will look at my short time frames now just to kind of see what they're saying in this immediate area. Now, if we don't break above 60.75 right now as I'm speaking, this could potentially have a small pullback, but it just broke above, so that it no longer is holding. But I do want to pull up my 3 minute here and just see. So off of the 50% of the previous day level, we did also get a 3 minute bullish divergence. So now we have 3 minute, 10 minute, 30 minute, 60 minute, all giving us the potential bullish indication here off of 57.50. So in an ideal world, we will get a larger push up. Now, if we push up, there's some things to keep in mind here. We have some important levels. So in this level here at 63, if you look at previous price action, you can see how well it's worked in the overnight here as support. So as we come up to 63, there could be a little bit of resistance in that area. It also happens to be for this local leg here, just about 50%. So it's 50 to 61.8, but pretty much a 50% retracement. So we're going to want to watch that if we can push up here. And if we can get through that, then we pretty much have the KP and the CP to contend with.